manufacturing incubator. And this is the Making a Difference Ignite talk session. So folks are going to be talking about, well, obviously things that are making a difference in the maker community, in the community at large, and just a whole lot of really cool things. So the first Ignite presenter is going to be Ashley West, and cultivating empowerment through making.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
No pressure going first here. Can I trace the floor high? Let's see. Here we go. So I'm Ashley West, and I'm an emerging technologies librarian at the University of Oklahoma. And today I'm going to share my passion of cultivating empowerment through making with you all. So I'm originally from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I was born in Texas, raised in Oklahoma City, and my passion for making started at a very young age. I was always taught to think with my own mind, work with my own two hands, and kind of think outside the box. And that inspiration came from my father. He always challenged me to think outside the box and think outside of that box and think outside even those two boxes. And that sense of empowerment led me to new ways of thinking and not being afraid to fail forward. I think it's so important for us to not be afraid of that failure because beautiful things can come out of that. And that sense of empowerment led me to be able to create in different mediums. And I realized something, everything in this picture right here I learned in the past year because of not being afraid to fail and not being afraid to have that mindset to move forward and have that empowerment. And I think it's so important that we drive that empowerment and inspire others to cultivate that making mindset no matter what area that you're in and no matter what you're studying. So I had the opportunity when I started this job to refresh the makerspace within the University of Oklahoma Libraries called The Edge. This is an open and free and accessible space that is open to anyone that wants to come and create using 3D printing, virtual reality, 3D scanning, lots of different types of technologies. And I love this space so much because it is a melting pot of ideas. So when I first started my observation processes, I started realizing that people didn't know this space existed, which blew my mind because everything is free and accessible and you don't have to be an engineer or a technologist to come use the space. So I wanted to change that. And I started approaching it from the mindset of let's change our programming to be more diverse and to start to capture that audience that has that different mindset, that different background. And something beautiful started to happen where people weren't afraid to come into the space and they weren't afraid to use these technologies, and it started to build this sense of community that I hadn't seen before. And that really came from working in an open environment. As you can see here, we have a fiber arts workshop happening. So everyone came to this workshop with a sense of, let's make together. What can we do? How can we uplift each other with the tools that we have available to ourselves? And that's something that's really, really empowered me and empowered others to see this cultivation of creativity happening within the space. And I think that sense of community is what we need to focus on as makers, and not have that elitist mentality that might brush people away. Because I feel like there are some makers and maker spaces that have that mindset, and I think the more that we cultivate that empowerment, the more that we can foster that sense of community in all of us. And that's what we're here for, right? And in the world that we live in today, we need as much of empowerment as we can get. So we've actually partnered with the Girl Scouts of America to bring in a local Girl Scout troop to earn their STEM badges at our space, which I thought was really fun. So they were able to create with their own two hands, 3D scan each other, and then 3D print themselves. So they went through the entire 3D workflow. And this is Jessica. What I love about Jessica is her empowerment for creativity. She took her CT scan data from her brain and actually 3D printed it at full scale. How cool is that? She's also one of our 3D printing apprentices, so she learns how to maintenance printers, and that's a really great example of empowerment. This is Dalton. Dalton is amazing. He uses 3D modeling as a creative outlet and then 3D prints these artifacts to give to his friends and his professors. And I think that's a really beautiful way of creating and empowering. This is Miranda. She's awesome. She's one of our student employees in space, and she's majoring in sociology and nonprofit management. And I gave her a question. How has working in a makerspace empowered you? And she told me that previously she only worked in two-dimensional art forms, and working in the makerspace has empowered her to branch out and learn new technologies, which I think is really awesome. It's helped her become more confident and outgoing and not be afraid to break things and try new things and not be afraid to fail, which which I think is a great outcome of having that creativity mindset. So I think it's so important to realize that whenever we create, we empower people. It's a form of nonverbal communication. And it's a trickle-down effect that can lead from one idea to another. So I think now more than ever, it's so important to empower the young generation to create and cultivate that empowerment, because that's what leads to new ways of thinking and innovating. And that's what the future is going to be, new ideas, new ways of making. So if you're looking for strategies to diversify your makerspace and being more inclusive, come find me. I'd love to connect. And here is our website if you want to learn more about the makerspace at the University of Oklahoma, The Edge. Thank you for your time.